So my name is Greg Kettman. I work for Lenovo. I'm the product manager on Azure Stack. Also for S2D, Storage Spaces Direct, storage infrastructure. So to start this off, we're going to be talking to Phil Moss. Phil has some slides on building up the infrastructure. He's an expert in S2D. He's working with us to train some of our people, actually working with Microsoft to train some of our people on S2D. Definitely an expert on the subject, and he's going to describe the infrastructure and how it's built and why we need Azure Stack, or at least the need that Azure Stack fulfills, which I will then describe to you as I talk to you about ThinkAgile Azure Stack and how you can use it in your environment to enhance your experience. Phil.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Good morning, all, and apologies for my croaky voice. It's been a long week. So, let's first of all talk about the power of partnership. So, Lenovo has this strong, deep relationship with both Microsoft and Accutech as a service provider. Now, that relationship and that partnerships bring some fantastic services and benefits to our customers, delivering Lenovo customers that great integrated experience between hardware, software, and services to deliver integrated, managed, turnkey solutions. That is a fantastic differentiator compared to some of the other vendors out there in the market. So, this morning, I am going to talk about the evolution of the data center. Let's think about the data center for a second. And if we go back, we think about this classic storage network compute model. And in the classic data center, we have storage, hardware storage area networks, RAID arrays, direct attached storage, those hardware appliances we traditionally use. And in the networking space, we have switches, firewalls, routers, physical hardware equipment that we build our interconnection and our infrastructure with. And then obviously, on the complete compute layer, we have physical servers, if we're going back a few years, and in the modern era, we have hypervisors, VMware, Hyper-V, etc. So what's interesting about this model is that we've been doing it for quite a long time. In fact, we've been doing it now for about 30 years. Long, long time. And the thing is, we might as well be living in the Stone Age when it comes to that level of technology, because it locks us into a world of defining things at the outset and limiting flexibility and limiting scale. This moves us into the era of the software-defined data center. Now, the software-defined data center has now been with us for a few years, in fact, approaching 10 years. And if we think about the software-defined data center model, it is allowing us to deliver on those heterogeneous workloads, those diverse, scalable workloads. It allows us to drive up scale and have flexibility in our platforms to not only deal with the services we have today, but deal with the ones we have in 3, 4, 5 years. And critically, the software-defined data center allows us to hit that budget and that price point that is so key in the modern IT platform. Now, what is the true power of the software-defined data center? It's about taking commodity software and mix that with commodity hardware. And we do that to reduce complexity, drive out middleware, and simplify the system. That gives us that increased flexibility and that increased reliability. However, through this model, if we just use commodity hardware, commodity software, we'd have a bag of bits. So what's really important about the software-defined data center is we start thinking about this with defined hardware solutions and defined firmware and defined drivers, so we get that quality and experience. And we mix that with 100% automation and 100% virtualization to drive up that quality and availability bar. Now, the software-defined data center, as I say, has been through several iterations, and we've had it for several years. And we move now into the next version of Windows, which some of you will be able to see via insider builds. And we start talking about Storage Spaces Direct, the hyper-converged supporting storage platform within Windows Server 2016. This platform is very important because it also forms the foundation of Azure Stack, the product that Greg is going to talk about in a few minutes. So for those of you who are not familiar, Storage Spaces Direct is a scale-out storage platform within Windows Server directly. It is a software-defined scale-out storage platform. It supports hyper-converged and disaggregated models, and it scales from the small to medium-sized enterprise right up to the largest deployments you care about. Fantastic scale, fantastic flexibility, all from the same product. It delivers incredibly high performance. It's very flexible, and unlike some of the other incumbent vendors in the hyper-converged market, it drives down cost and increases scale compared to some of the other incumbent vendors. So, I spoke about this term hyper-converged. Hyper-converged, as probably many of us are aware, is this model where we start mixing storage and compute within a single node. We are able to scale out each node delivering increased storage and network performance and compute performance at the same time, simplifying the deployment, simplifying the configuration, driving innovation and flexibility on the workloads. Now, storage spaces direct today scales from 2 to 16 nodes. If you think about it, 16 nodes of 2U high servers is actually one rack. So you can go from a tiny little 2-node solution up to an entire rack inside of one cluster. You can scale this solution from a few terabytes up to over a petabyte in size. And critically with storage spaces direct, it gives you support for heterogeneous hardware versions and critically incremental node increase. You can start at 2, go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. This is very useful, as I said, because it forms the foundation of Azure Stack, which Greg is going to talk about, and that inherent flexibility and scale that you gain from storage spaces direct and hyper-converged Hyper-V is inherent in Azure Stack. Now, Lenovo offers a range of hardware options available storage spaces direct, delivering on performance, price, and capability. And we have a nice little table here that I won't subject you to now, but you have a number of hardware options tuned for performance, cost, or capacity requirements. Fully validated, fully supported by Lenovo and Microsoft as a turnkey integrated solution. And now we turn to the enhancements of storage spaces direct. These are enhancements that you'll find in the future version of Windows. They're available today inside of an insider build. And really, they focus on 3 key areas that we're going to take advantage of. New configuration and deployment options are absolutely key. Simpler management and significantly improved performance in certain scenarios. So let's spend some time kind of going through those. The benefits of hyper-converged without limitation. What does that mean? Hyper-converged deployments are very powerful, as we've already said, but they have some limitations. For example, today you have to scale your storage and compute at the same time. You run out of hypervisor capacity, you've got to buy more storage. Need more storage, you've got to buy more hypervisor capacity. One of the beautiful benefits in the future version of storage spaces direct is that you'll be able to have compute-only nodes and storage-only nodes, allowing you to scale and deploy independently of each other. It also means that as you start sharing different hardware versions, you can scope either particular volumes or particular workloads to only use the particular hardware versions. That avoids you having to pare back configurations to earlier hardware versions. So think about that for a second. The benefits of hyper-converged with the flexibility of independently scaling storage and compute. Highly attractive, all directly inside of Server 2016 storage spaces direct. Then, speed and capacity without the trade-off. One of the fantastic features of storage spaces direct is its ability to give fantastic disk performance and efficiency, significantly higher than traditional RAID arrays. The way it does that is it generates volumes that are 3-way mirror and backed by parity, offering substantially better raw disk efficiencies. There were challenges in those configurations in previous releases. In the next release, coming up in the future, they have made significant performance enhancements, meaning that these new type of hybrid volumes are suited for driving VM workloads, giving you that performance and that raw disk efficiency, but still giving you that level of performance to drive your VM workloads, to drive that data-intensive applications. Highly, highly, highly attractive. We next come to my, one of my favorite scenarios. One of the best use of storage spaces direct is at the 2-node, the SMB/SME market. And what's fantastic about this scenario is it allows those small deployments, those branch offices, those very small deployments, to get highly available storage and compute solutions. One of the problems with that technology, though, was that you could only suffer a single node failure, or sorry, a single disk failure. So that meant if you lost 2 hard disks, you'd lost everything. All gone wrong, all completely died. So one of the changes they've made in the next version of Storage Spaces Direct is to support 2 independent hard disk failures, but still only with 2 nodes. So you get n+2 redundancy at disk, but still only with 2 nodes. This is very attractive for increasing the availability and reliability of that tiny branch office and 2-node scenario. Fantastic beneficial solution. And then new deployment options and simpler maintenance. So one of the challenges of all shared nothing solutions, of which Storage Spaces Direct is one, is that when you reboot a node for patching or maintenance or it goes offline, the node has to reconverge its data. It has to get back in sync when you reboot that node. And that activity takes time. It takes network load and it takes time. One of the outcomes of that is it means that you can't have nodes that have very large numbers of disks in them. It also means that you cannot have more than, say, 64 terabytes of storage in a node today. With changes in the next version of Storage Spaces Direct, Microsoft has changed the rebuild behavior so that there is no rebuild after you reboot a node. Now, I know that was all very engineering and geeky, but here's the benefit. It means you can have individual nodes or servers that have very large numbers of disks, 60, 72, 128. That means you can put very large capacities and very large densities of storage into each node. That means for your large data lakes, your large capacity, critically your backup solutions, you can build very large capacity solutions using a low number of nodes. Enormous scale and enormous data capacity built from Storage Spaces Direct, lit up by the future version of capability. And the last one, the one that everyone will cheer about, graphical management. That's what I like to hear. So, for those of you who've worked with Storage Spaces Direct or any Microsoft product recently, you'll know that the only way of managing it is PowerShell. There is a new graphical interface known as Project Honolulu. It is an HTML5 interface. It is very simple. It is very easy. Critically, it is just a single executable you install either on server or onto Windows 10 client. The interface connects and can manage Hyper-V, Storage Spaces Direct clustering, and in future releases, additional capabilities are coming in. It's very easy, it's very simple, and as some of you will know, there was a session on it earlier on this week, but I would highly recommend you go back and watch. So let's think about that for a second. Increased scale, increased flexibility, easier to manage. All in the future versions of Storage Spaces Direct. Now, that was a fantastic summary of Storage Spaces Direct, that fantastic core platform that's driving the hyper-converged future. However, we now enter a phase of evolution. So, I started by talking about the hardware-defined data center, the way a lot of us probably started building data centers. We are in the era of the virtualization-centric fabric, the software-defined data center. This is what I've just described to you, Storage Spaces Direct, Hyper-V. Software-defined networking. We now pivot, though, into the era of the services-centric infrastructure. And the key thing about the services-centric infrastructure is we stop thinking about fabric, we stop thinking about VMs, we stop thinking about those core activities, and we start thinking about delivering services and capabilities to our users or to our customers. And so we move over to Lenovo ThinkAgile. What is Lenovo ThinkAgile? It is an integrated Azure-consistent appliance. Very important that we have that word. It is an appliance. It is designed, supplied, and installed and delivered to you by Lenovo as a turnkey solution. It is built on those fantastic core capabilities within Windows Server, Storage Spaces Direct, software-defined networking, Hyper-V, with a 100% Azure-consistent management and services layer on top. Azure on-prem with direct public Azure interop. Turnkey appliance from Lenovo. Now, you might say, why? Why do we need this? Why do we need an on-prem Azure appliance? Well, let's talk about the hybrid scenarios. there are three critical scenarios where this solution is highly attractive. The first is the scenario where it's a cloud-ready application. It's a born in the cloud application that for either regulatory or compliance reasons, you cannot run in public cloud. With the power of ThinkAgile and Azure Stack, you can now run that on-prem. What's known as the edge or the disconnected scenario. I always say the nuclear submarine, but my friends in Microsoft prefer to say the cruise ship. But the scenario where you haven't got a permanent internet connection. Azure Stack allows you to have the Azure consistent experience in those scenarios where you do not have access to the internet, but you want that consistent application and services experience. And the last one is the so-called modern application. The application that was written from the ground up to take dependencies on the public cloud. And those are applications where either you run some of the instance in the public cloud and some of it on-prem in Azure Stack, or some components are run from Azure Stack and other components are run from public cloud. And so we have these three fantastic scenarios: compliance, disconnected, born in the cloud application. All that are ideal to take advantage of an on-prem Azure consistent appliance. Now, let's just quickly summarize where we get to then. So we have Server 2016 and we have ThinkAgile for Azure Stack. If you want that maximum flexibility, that maximum scale, the benefits of commodity hardware, the greatest feature set inside of Windows, you want Windows Server 2016 running Storage Space Direct, running Hyper-V. And you've seen Lenovo has a fantastic set of hardware options that support that capability. If, however, what you want is Azure consistent and 100% Azure API consistent as a turnkey appliance, delivering you a fixed set of services with a managed integrated user experience, Azure Stack is the solution for you. Now, hopefully, I've whetted your appetite, I've covered the basics of Storage Space Direct and Hyper-V, and I have introduced the benefits of hybrid solutions. I'm now going to hand over to Greg, who is going to talk more about Azure Stack and ThinkAgile. So, Greg, thank you very much indeed. All yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Phil. So again, my name is Greg Kettman. I am with Lenovo, and I'll be discussing Azure Stack. Now, Phil mentioned the Stone Age. Sometimes I think that's where I came from, at least in a computer era Stone Age. So when I started my career at IBM, I was servicing mainframes. So when Phil talks about commodity hardware, we're comparing against million-dollar pieces of equipment. And one of the things that goes through my mind these days is we're kind of like re-entering the era of the mainframe, but in a different context. In the day of the mainframe, we had a single box. It was incredibly resilient. It was somewhat scalable, but it took incredible amounts of workload, managed that, and took care of everything, and it was all in one box. And then as evolution, as Phil talked about, we talked about adding storage, adding compute, adding what other capabilities. We moved into a data center where we had a siloed environment with different pillars managed by different groups: networking group, storage group, compute group, virtualization in the compute. And that's all coming back together now. So what we see now is we're moving back to an era where we can put it all in one box that's easily managed and taken care of, and we don't worry about it. Interestingly, the fault tolerance has moved up to the application layer, so we see a slight restructuring of the way things are managed. But nonetheless, if you think about it, we're moving back to that era of time, in my opinion. You can certainly disagree or whatever with that, but it's an interesting analogy to think about that, because that's what we're moving to, is back to a single box that does everything, that's incredibly fault tolerant and resilient and very easily managed. There we go. Phil's number of years is based on, he was talking virtualization. I'm going to talk about first on this, on our relationship with Microsoft. So I would definitely argue that that goes back to 1981. DOS. I think it was DOS 3.1 back then, certainly in the 3 range. A long history of a relationship with that. Lenovo acquired the ThinkPad line of products from IBM, I don't remember the number, 12-ish years ago. And then 2-ish years ago plus, we acquired Data Center Group for the server technology upon which we're building these solutions. We've been actively involved with Microsoft with S2D, with Phil, et cetera, since before last October. I will repeat and stress, Storage Spaces Direct is a component of Windows Server 2016. It's built into it. If you buy Data Center Edition of Windows Server 2016, you have Storage Spaces Direct. It is a validated solution, so we have reference architectures, we have ways to help that. Phil can help you with that. So certainly you want to build out your infrastructure, you want to make sure it's planned accordingly, so looking for our expertise or Phil's expertise is a great idea, but we've been doing this for quite some time now. For that matter, we've been building Azure Stack with Microsoft since the beginning of last year, so our expertise and skills in that arena are also well established. As of last Tuesday, 9/21, we started shipping product. So we are shipping Azure Stack. If you ordered it today, we'll begin shipping it to you. So order to ship is 3 weeks. So we can deliver in that time frame. Keep that in mind. So I'll have order sheets up here. You can start signing up. I tried. With that in mind, though, the TAP program, Technology Adoption Program, that'll be winding down now, but that's been going on for several months now. So we do have 7 customers, one of who will be here to talk to you today about their experience with Azure Stack. Those TAP customers then have been beta testing this product for a number of months with us, Lenovo, and with Microsoft to make sure that what you get is a very solid product. One of the reasons that Azure Stack is appealing is from a Microsoft perspective. As Phil talked about, this is an ecosystem. And by the way, we can build out more on the ecosystem. I'm talking about Azure Stack today, but Microsoft's vision in the cloud is a little broader than that. We also offer solutions called Edge Cloud. Edge Cloud is great for small and medium business, for branch office, for areas like that. Azure Stack is aimed more at the enterprise, at the service provider space. This is a higher end, more enterprise solution. We do have a solution in the middle, and we, Lenovo, can also offer through PC Group things like Office 365 and the such. So we have a whole scale of products. On that scale would be a build-out solution, such as Phil was talking about, where you do continue to build up machines, where you continue to deploy VMs, et cetera. Now, Microsoft is delivering then an Azure consistent environment where you can either locally on your own prem or in the cloud create applications that are consistent that can be moved across that entire environment. So now the ecosystem has grown. It's grown not just from being in the cloud, but now you can also seamlessly drive down to your enterprise. That ecosystem is not limited to the coding that you can create, to the applications that you're creating. It also includes a rich ecosystem of partners, of services, of capabilities in the cloud that you can deploy in your local Azure Stack environment. Included in that is software backup, right? There are many software backup vendors that you can use their product. There are container support. We see that in Docker. The Kubernetes could be added to that slide. These capabilities are in Azure Stack or are being added to Azure Stack as we speak. So this is not a closed environment. This is a very open environment where all the tools that you're used to using in the Azure environment are now available to you in your Azure Stack environment. When Lenovo enters this space, the first thing that we did or are doing is ThinkAgile. So ThinkAgile is our brand for appliances and rack scale integration. So we've all seen this. As I mentioned, we acquired technology from IBM, including many people from IBM, so skills and expertise that go along with that. We've taken those skills, those expertise, and we have launched our own converged, hyper-converged rack scale integration product line. We've layered that with something called ThinkAgile Advantage, which is premium services, premium support, single point of support. The thing that's very good about this, and by the way, if you watch this space then, you'll see a lot from Lenovo in the solution space around the ThinkAgile brand. That's what my department, I work for Data Center Group, DCG, we're headquartered out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and that's what we do, is solutions. So we're working on a wide range of solutions that will be delivered under the ThinkAgile umbrella. That includes rack scale integration, and that also includes single nodes that have been customized to purpose. So not pre-announcing anything, but just watch this space and you'll see what we do with ThinkAgile to deliver the value that you see on your screen there. That matches very closely with Microsoft's vision for Azure Stack. Azure Stack is designed by Microsoft from the very beginning to be an extension of Azure. Now, if you think about Azure, if you think about the cloud experience, if any of us right now wanted to deploy a machine in the cloud, we would get out our credit card, we'd sign up for an account, and 5 minutes from now, we could have an operational VM. Might be stretching it a little, but not much. That's what it takes. I remember the days when I wanted to deploy new hardware for a department or for a project or something like that. You'd acquire the hardware, you'd check all the firmware levels, you'd try it out, you'd load the operating system, you'd load all the patches on top of it, you'd load the latest iteration of the software and see what got broken, and then you'd circle back around and fix everything all over again. It was a fairly intensive process, took a fair amount of time with a lot of test. That's all been done for you. That's in the product, okay? And that's the dream or the goal of Azure Stack, is to take that same ease of use of the cloud experience and bring it to your enterprise. And this is how we deliver it. So it's a simple solution. It's turnkey. When you place that order and 3 weeks later it shows up on your doorstep, we work with you to make sure it's located in the right spot, that it's got the right power. As soon as the lights are on, we send professional services on site to install the code. Interestingly, we take that code, the equipment, comes in all the parts, we integrate it in a rack, we make sure it's perfect, we load Azure Stack on that rack. We install Azure Stack. We test the system, we make sure it's fully operational, and then we remove Azure Stack. It's finally installed on your premise. That's done on purpose at Microsoft's request and using Microsoft routines. They have a deployment engine to make the installation seamless. One product. Well, we use xClarity under the covers for management. Other than that, one product gets installed on that machine, Azure Stack. We don't install Hyper-V, we don't install Windows Server 2016, we don't install S2D. They're in there, but we don't install them. It's all done through a single process of that. The professional services people, when they install this, have a list of required things, such as IP addresses, connectivity requirements, et cetera, that's all been worked out ahead of time. And so when this stamp of Azure Stack is installed, it's fully operational. It will have already talked to Microsoft. It will make sure that it's fully functional. We turn over to you a fully functional Azure Stack stamp. That's your first experience with Azure Stack on premise. It's agile, I mentioned before. Develop once, deploy any. So Azure Stack is designed to thoroughly integrate with Azure. You can easily shut down an image locally, send it up to the cloud, run it up there. It's that simple as long as you're using a core set of services. And then finally, it's a transformative experience. When we deliver that hardware and we turn it over to you, that is not the end of the equation. So there's always lifecycle management in a machine. There's firmware updates, there's software updates. There's other things that are going to happen with that. And if we just said, okay, here it is, goodbye, that would not be a great experience. So there's two more things that are built into this product. One of those is single point of support. This is not treated as a box of components. This is not treated as a bunch of elements then that you need to support. This is treated as a single solution. Software and hardware, the entire solution. So with single point of support, 1-800-Lenovo, regardless of where the problem is, we will take care of it. If it turns out that the problem is in Microsoft, we will warm transfer that over. And even if it comes back to us, we'll still keep track of that call. If it's hardware, we will work with you to make sure that a CE is dispatched, customer engineer, make sure that we can resolve that problem, okay? Parts, when they're installed, will be firmware level matched to your environment. All of that is built in. Single point of support, that's what you're going to get. Additionally, though, you don't have to worry about firmware updates. We have services available. You could do it, but firmware updates are never done at the individual component level. We are never going to say, oh, update the firmware on the HBA. It's not going to happen. We manage firmware in the entire solution in what we call best recipe. So we keep them all at carefully synchronized levels so that we can pre-test all this and pre-validate that. That cadence is separate from Microsoft's cadence. As Microsoft has mentioned at this show, they do expect roughly a monthly cadence on software updates. Sounds aggressive. I know I've been in IT a long time and we tend to shy away from updates and all that. These are going to be different. These are going to be very similar to what we get with our cell phones. So in this environment, an update will be completed and Microsoft then will run a full set of validation tests on that software. And then they give it to us, and we run a full validation set on that same software. So finally, when it arrives at you, you know that it's been tested at least twice. Now, Azure Stack, I'll get into the specs on it in just a minute. It's a controlled environment. You can't just say, oh, I want one of these, one of these, one of these, put it together, and that's my Azure Stack. We're going to say, oh, no, no, no. You can choose from this, 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 and this, period. There is no latitude within that. What the choices that you see are the choices that you get. There's a reason for that, though. And that's so that we can keep identical equipment to that in our labs. Microsoft can keep it in their labs, and we can run that validation. After we run that validation, then, you either download the code or you get a notification that says there's a software update available. Would you like to accept it? And if you click yes and accept it, you're done. In the background, workload will be moved off, live migration, free up a node, rolling migration, rolling updates throughout the platform, okay? Minimal tenant impact. The tenant will remain operational. The only impact will be any activity that's taking place because of the live migration and as things are applied. But that's the scenario that we see that. That makes that monthly update cycle much more appealing, much more easy to do, and it allows Microsoft then to update to you, rapidly bring updates, service updates, changes to the Azure code to you in a rapid fashion. So we're going to see this product, Azure Stack, continue to evolve as they update the Azure Stack environment with these monthly updates, give or take. So I mentioned I would discuss the hardware. Our hardware is X3650, doesn't matter to you, fairly standard, hyper-converged. You can have between 4 and 12 nodes. That's based on Microsoft input. That cannot be altered. That's what any vendor will have. We offer between 14 and 22 cores. Again, that means at 22 cores, no one in the industry can beat us because there are no more cores in the Broadwell line than 22. So that maxes that. We do 768 gig of memory, and again, no one can exceed that. And we offer 4 and 6 terabyte drives. Now that's by design. I believe at least one of our competitors has larger drives out there, but as Phil pointed out, our experience in S2D shows that if you use larger drives, you could have some degradation of performance in a resync environment, and so we chose to not do that at this point in time. So that was by plan done. We support 4 and 6 terabyte drives at this point in time. We do have 10 drives in each system, so that means we will have 40 and 60 terabyte nodes. As Phil mentioned, they keep 3 distinct copies. In part, that's done for performance. So 3 distinct copies. They're in Azure Stack. It's pre-set up so that they don't do parity checking, so the CPU overhead is quite low. And then you add nodes to add capacity. 3 nodes means, and I always use 60 because the math is easier, right? So that means in a 60 terabyte raw, you're going to get 20 terabytes actual. You can do the math on 40. So that is the system. Now, that is, I mentioned deployment services, single point of support, et cetera. So we've got all of that. Now, we do know that 4 nodes can generate roughly 800,000 IOPS. Phil says he can do better than that, and I know he has done much better than that. We can do the math on all that. We can end up with roughly 1,500 VMs and 2 million IOPS, and it is shipping now. Now, your mileage may vary. Oh, you have a slide on that. So we'll talk about capacities and kind of how you get a rough idea on sizing, but it's very important to keep in mind that your mileage may vary. So let's recap then what this offers, okay? Lenovo ThinkAgile. It's a brand. It is Lenovo's brand that we are going to use to provide these kinds of solutions to you. The first out the door is Azure Stack, but look for more from Lenovo in this space. We are fully committed to this. We are fully committed to bringing you a premium, hyper-converged, rack-integrated solution. Please keep that in mind. I have trouble reading that screen. It's easier to read over there. So fast to deploy. Fast meaning that we are going to deploy it for you, okay? You're going to have it. It's operational. There is opportunity for you to do further integration. We can do that through services, or you can do it, so say Active Directory integration, maybe other integrations to your environment, but it will be in your IP address space, and it will be fully operational. Pay as you use. Actually, I haven't defined that yet. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. And integrated. fully integrated lifecycle managed solution. So let me circle back around to, maybe. There we go. The delivery model. So with the hardware, it's pretty much a typical buying cycle. Buy it, lease it. We're working on advanced leasing options as well. But that's a fairly typical model. When you look at that, there's the hardware. You need to acquire the hardware. You're going to be running on top of the hardware. However, Microsoft Azure Stack is delivered as a service. So when you install this software, when I hand you the keys to the Azure Stack, and okay, here it is, it's all yours, your cost for Azure Stack is $0.00. And it will remain that way until you start spinning up virtual CPUs. All right? This table comes from Microsoft's websites, very public. I'm nothing secret in that. You can see the way the numbers work. And so then what will happen is as you utilize the environment, you will get a bill from Microsoft once a month for the Azure Stack software, and that's the basic methodology of the costing model for what you would be paying for Azure Stack. Okay? So you can see the numbers in there. If you're bringing your own Windows licenses, of course, it's going to be less. If you just need the virtual CPUs, this is, by the way, a shortened version of the table. They have additional things in there, but it gets the concept across, right? And of course, it's a cloud environment, so you can rent services. You need SQL services, you can rent those. You need backup services, you can rent those. So with that in mind, that is the basic model for delivery of Lenovo ThinkAgile and Microsoft Azure Stack. Sizing. Our lead architect is in there, and he says, no, I really don't like this, because the thing to stress here is your mileage may vary, all right? These are loose guidelines. But nonetheless, these are something that you can take into account if you are trying to kind of size this. Now, some of this, we do work with Microsoft very closely. We have tools that we can use, our salespeople can use, our technical people can use to help more accurately size a solution for you. So this is just a guideline. In general, though, we're looking at 4x CPU over commit. You can use that to kind of size it. Now, obviously, that means for the number of CPUs that, I'm going to use the A0 instance, right? So as many of them as I can get. So your VMs, you'll probably be using multiple cores, and so your numbers will be based on core count. The table that you do see on the left side of the chart is from Microsoft. Again, I believe there's 25 VM instances that you can use. So those are the sizes and shapes of virtual machines that you can deploy in an Azure Stack environment. So those then, if you take and do the math and all that, you can figure out approximately what size. Do you need 4 nodes? Do you need 22 core processors, or do you need other? Are you running database applications or databases and you want a lot of memory? You might want to up on the memory. So there are considerations that you want to make as you're sizing this. Another thing to keep in mind in an Azure Stack environment, it's a completely homogeneous environment. And that means that if you build your first node and you use a 2680 14-core processor and 512 gig of memory and you use 60 terabyte drives, every node in that environment, in that rack, in that stamp, in that fault domain, in that region, they're all the same at this moment in time, must match that exactly. So you can't go to the next node and say, oh, I want 768 gig of memory. You're not allowed to do that. Every node must be the same. Keep that in mind. But as you size your environment, then you can size from 4 to 12 nodes. With Lenovo, you can upgrade that in the field, 1 node at a time, or 2 or 4, whatever you'd like, but in increments of as little as 1 node. The only caveat to that is Microsoft has not yet released the ability to add that node in. So when that software capability is made available by Microsoft, you will be able to order additional nodes from Lenovo to enhance the environment up to the maximum of 12 nodes, which was on the last slide. And I don't know if I mentioned it. Memory does not overcommit, okay? Not a problem, that's the way it is. But when you run out of memory, you won't be able to deploy more VMs. So just, again, in your sizing considerations, if you're looking at this, if you want 4 nodes or 6 nodes or whatever you decide to do, your processor choices, your memory choices, look at your environment, see what your application set's going to be, compute heavy, memory heavy, whatever it may be, and then size accordingly. I've mentioned this, but it needs to be discussed more. we send Lenovo professional services on-prem to deploy this solution, okay? We have deployed the 7 technology adoption program customers. We've also deployed, Microsoft has technology centers, MTCs, Microsoft Technology Centers. I have a slide on it in a moment. The MTCs are a resource that we can all use. Excellent resource. We also have our innovation centers. So we've deployed these Azure Stack instances very recently. So they have the skills and the expertise they need to do that. So they will come on-prem. They will install this in your environment. There are other services involved. And I know this is a little bit of an eye chart. The key point is that Microsoft has, again, and this is a good thing, Microsoft has indicated what they consider mandatory and what they consider optional. That's to guarantee a consistent and comfortable customer experience. When you buy this, you want to be able to get the same thing. So they're mandatory, single point of support. That is mandatory. The deployment services are also mandatory, as indicated by Microsoft. So keep that in mind. Those will always be consistent. That'll be consistent across vendors. Obviously, we're going to integrate it in our factory. We're going to take care of the things as that. Now, we also offer other optional services. One of those is firmware updates. So you can buy a professional services contract, essentially, that's going to, our people will go on-prem and update your firmware to the latest best recipe. So we're hoping or thinking that that'll be on a yearly cadence. We'll kind of see as time goes forward. Again, it's not individual components. Individual components are updated, but we don't do this a component at a time. We keep the entire stack at very prescribed recipe levels. And with that in mind, when it's deemed appropriate to re-update to the newest levels, we'll send someone out, if you'd like, to apply those changes to your entire environment. We also expect to have managed services. There are other capabilities. And for the service providers in this room, assuming there are some, that's also an opportunity for you to add value to your customers. We get a lot, I'm on a lot of calls on Azure Stack, and it's very common that as we take that cloud paradigm, as we take the fact that this is a turnkey solution, that it's lifecycle managed, they don't want to do the administration of it either. They're just as happy to let someone else manage the resource groups to make sure that the resources are there, to make sure they're not running out of resources. That's managed services. There's an opportunity for us or for you to do that. So, within this platform, I've been focusing on the environment. So we do run on 2-node systems, et cetera. That's the environment that we're running on. Within the environment, though, we also need to have management. Again, this is, as indicated by Microsoft, you should see something similar to this in different environments. We, of course, do it better, but we use a product called xClarity. xClarity is a new product that we're working with, and that gives it some significant advantages because it doesn't have a bunch of legacy code obligations that it needs to drag along. Actually, as a whole, Lenovo can claim that. So as we're building this out, we don't have to worry about poaching from our storage folks. We don't have to worry about things like that. Within Lenovo, this is a very strong initiative, xClarity and ThinkAgile both. Within that are our network switches. The reason we use our network switches is because Microsoft had numerous capabilities, changes, features that we needed to add to the coding in the switch. We call it our cloud network operating system. We've added specific capabilities into that to support Microsoft. Now, all of that, including the switches, from a hardware perspective, is managed through xClarity. So one of the big things we use it for in this environment is that it is managing and monitoring the firmware levels. It's actually capable of updating firmware throughout the environment, and that's in a large part what we're using to facilitate that. But it also enforces that firmware. So I mentioned best recipe. You can't have a best recipe if people can just break the rules. So if a drive gets installed and it's not at the right firmware level, we'll be notified of that through xClarity. So xClarity is very good in that regard. We leverage it quite heavily. It runs in a VM. It's very light. And in addition to that, it's completely open. So whatever you're using, if you're using System Center, SCOM, if you're using Nagios, if you're using other, we can interface to it. We have those hooks already in place. We've already demonstrated this talking to OMS. So this is a very flexible environment that you can very easily integrate into your existing hardware management platform to pass the hardware errors. Now, pardon me. There'll never be an error. Hardware reporting. With that in mind, keep in mind that Microsoft has ARM, Azure Resource Manager, and it's managing this from a resource perspective. I'm discussing this from a hardware perspective. And then Microsoft's also watching the hard drives. So they actually get the information off of the hard drives directly up into ARM. But this is how we manage the hardware. This is how we make that hardware information available to you. So let's summarize what we've done. ThinkAgile. All the things that I say there, I don't know if people know it or not, we're #1 in reliability, #1 in customer satisfaction. I think they're on there, the sourcing of that. That's been true for the last 4 years. So that's a fairly powerful statement. At least based against one of our competitors, we have 57% more compute. That's simple calculation. They max at 14 cores, we max at 22 cores. Do the math, you come up with 57%. Same on memory. One of our competitors maxes at half a terabyte, we go to 786. So, unsurpassed capacity and performance. It is not possible to put more capacity and performance in these boxes. We have the maximum core count, we have the maximum memory count, everything about this. Our platform that we're building on, the X3650, we hold numerous benchmarks for records. The entire product line actually does, for SQL Server, for SAP HANA, for various things. We have many benchmark records. We actually have them now also for our next generation equipment. We've already setting records in that space. We've run Vinea's run SQL Server benchmarks already and set records with that. So keep that in mind. Won't beat our performance and our capability. And best value. So there are published articles. Just go search on it. You can see Microsoft requested this kind of information from us a while back. It's all out there. We are very interested in this space. We're very aggressively pursuing this space, and we've done an excellent job of bringing that to you. I've also mentioned xClarity. xClarity is a very strong positive because it is lightweight. This is going to be built. Whatever Azure Stack instance you buy is going to have a management software. So you're going to have to think about what comes with that and what's required to do with that and how it integrates, et cetera. And we know that this is lightweight. We know this is very easily integrated into your environment. So I mentioned, I'm going to mentally at least jump forward. At the end of this is an absolute eye chart of a slide. I'll just leave it up so people can look at it. It's got everything about Azure Stack that you ever wanted to know, at least from a ThinkAgile perspective. And in the left-hand column of that, there's a green column. And by the way, if you need these, we can obviously get you that. Send us an email, whatever the case may be. In the right-hand column of that is something called the ASDK. So that's the Azure Stack Developers Kit. The Azure Stack Developers Kit is how you can try this today. And it's very, very simple to do. So it's a very lightweight implementation. You can do it with just about any 2-socket server. You need at least 5 hard drives, 1 boot, 4 for the storage pool. But based on that environment, and it's not like you need 22 cores. I mean, you can get by, I don't remember if it's 6 cores or 8 cores, but it's certainly not a large lift. You can take that machine, you can install it in your environment, you can go up to the Microsoft website, and you can download Azure Stack code that will run on a single node. And you can test this and try this yourself, all right? That's the best way that we recommend you try a proof of concept, and that's the way you should get involved. Vinay wrote a document on that to help you get involved in that, to help you install that, to give you a bill of material that you can use to order that, and to make it easy. The variations on that are unlimited. If you want to make more storage, you can. You can do however you want to do that, so that's great. Now, with that in mind, let's say that you want more. If you do want more, we have our innovation centers. So we, Lenovo, have 3 of these. RTP, Raleigh, that's where we work. We also have one in Stuttgart, and we also have one in Beijing. So those innovation centers then have operational Azure Stacks. Beijing's not up yet, but the other 2 have operational Azure Stacks that you can use as a proof of concept environment so that you can build out your environment. We'll work with you to do that. Additionally, though, come on. Additionally, Microsoft has technology centers. So they've got at least 30 of these around the world. I know 30 of them will have Azure Stacks. 10 of those will have Lenovo equipment in them. 2 weeks ago, we were down in New York City. We kind of christened the Microsoft Technology Center in New York City that is now fully operational, and that is available to use as a resource, along with the other locations that Microsoft has. So again, proof of concept, start with a single node, or work with Lenovo and Microsoft. Pick the environment that works best for you, and we can work with you to test these environments. All right? So, to summarize, we pursue better so you can pursue the incredible. We're here to take the legwork. We're here to make the infrastructure easy so that you can go ahead and deliver to your businesses what they need to get the job done so that you can do whatever it is you need to do. Sell this, create that, provide that service. That's what we're here to do. If you need more information, there is information. The proof of concept is a document. We can get you that. We also have a couple of entry points on our website. There's both a cloud and a ThinkAgile Azure Stack entry point onto our website so that you can go get all of this information. Now, this is the eye chart. Come on. This is the eye chart I mentioned. We're happy to share this with you. I was actually going to bring some, print them out and bring them, and I neglected to do that. My apologies. But this does list our basic models, 4 to 12 nodes, 6 processor types, 3 memory choices, and 2 storage choices. That's for GA. I won't promise what will happen after this, but we can certainly expect to see enhancements in the future. Now that GA is on us, we have the opportunity to start improving. But up until now, it's been a matter of getting to GA. So with that in mind, I did mention that we had 7 technology adoption program customers. And one of them, Paul, would like to talk to you then about his experiences with Azure Stack and how he's doing in the Azure Stack environment. Paul?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my name is Paul Anderson from IT Professional Services, and we are a service provider in the UK. We're in the northeast, so I apologise for my accent. It's a little bit strong, but I suppose we're Scottish rejects. Now, for us, what I want to talk about here is not the hardware. It's about the experience for us and the journey that we've been on. So about 6 months ago, we decided we wanted to look at Azure Stack. And it wasn't that easy. There wasn't that many people who knew anything about it at all. So we decided we would speak to some of the vendors. We had long-term relationships with IBM at the time and subsequently with Lenovo. So we decided that they would become our partner of choice. It was quite an easy decision to make. And a good friend of mine, Mark Edwards from Lenovo, basically helped us get onto that journey. And he put us up with a lot of clever people from Microsoft and from Lenovo. And at first we were thinking, why are they bothering with this small IT company in the northeast of England? Why does anyone care? And I think the reason is because as an early adopter, we were sort of committed to the program. We placed an order straight away, and they could see that we were going to put our money where our mouth was, and we were going to get on the program as soon as it became available. Just going through the slide. So IDBS was founded in 2000. Again, we're based in Newcastle. We have 3 data centers. And at the moment, we have a cloud solution, but it's not a cloud solution really. It's some Cisco servers, some NetApp storage, some VMware. We call it our cloud, and people host on it. It's been very, very successful for us over the past 5 years. We make plenty out of it. It's very reliable. It works really well. But it's not really a cloud solution. It's just our hosting platform. So what we're doing now is we're expanding on that. We have the engineering, we have the experience. We'll have no problem selling stuff. We have plenty of customers. But what we want to do here is we want to have a bigger reach. So instead of ITPS Limited, we want to go ITPS Global. And to be fair, we have customers from Nigeria, from Dubai, from Europe. So we do quite well what we've got, but what we want to do is we want to expand on that. So on our current capabilities, it has sort of limitations. And having people like Microsoft and Lenovo behind us has given us just the confidence, if you like, to take on this product. It's a big product for us. I remember when we said, like, oh, well, we want the best. We want the 12 nodes. We want the 22 core processors. We want the 768 gig of memory. We want the best. Of course we do. Then we said, Mark, can you give us a cost? Give us a price. And he said, here's the price. And I nearly fell off my seat. How much? You want what? But then when you break it down and you spread the cost over like a 5-year period, it becomes much more doable. You can spread the cost. And when you look at sort of saying, we sort of calculated, and again, very rough calculations, we'll get maybe 600 VMs on our system. And if you calculate it over 5 years, your return on investment can be massive, can be huge. And it needs to be, otherwise I'm getting sacked very soon. So it's important to us. So what I'll quickly say is, again, Lenovo have been absolutely, tremendous for us, and the people that they've hooked up. I remember being in Seattle. We've been to Seattle twice. We went to Hungary. They've been in our data center. I get a phone call from somebody every day, being at Microsoft or being at Lenovo, and I'm thinking, how do they know how I am? Why do they care? But it's been unbelievable. Last week, we went to Hungary. We were definitely the first Lenovo Azure Stack service provider, because we went to the factory and we witnessed it coming off the production line, got our photos took, cut the ribbon. And again, I'm thinking, what are they doing with us? But it's amazing. So back in the UK, what we want to do is, we want to shout this from the rooftops, that we are the first early adopter, and we'll say worldwide, global. Of course we are. We hope we are. But Mark says we are, so that'll do. But what they've done is they've done what they've said they're going to do. They've given us a fixed price. They've delivered the equipment to our data center in a Lenovo rack. Next week, again, there is literally 8 people turning up from all corners of the globe to Newcastle to install our Azure Stack. There's top guys from Microsoft, there's top guys from Lenovo, and I said to Mark, why is this? Why are these guys all coming? And it's because, with us being an early adopter, the first to market, which what I expect to be, nobody wants it to fail. So the actual effort that everyone's putting in is unbelievable for us. So again, the Azure Stack platform has come. We are only going to do infrastructure as a service on day one. That's because we're not developers. We don't have any software. We don't have any applications. We have data centers, and we have customers who we host their stuff. That's all we do. So when we get Azure Stack, we'll do infrastructure as a service, and we'll be very successful at that, I've absolutely no doubt. But to be more successful, we need to use the other items, and we need to also use our support services, which we'll be very good at. Things like Azure Stack at the moment doesn't support SQL as a service, but we certainly do. So we intend to have a SQL cluster which will be ready to go, so we will then be able to provide SQL as a service. Things like Express Route, is extremely expensive in the UK. It costs an absolute fortune. But what we can do is, through our carriers, we can provide high quality circuits, gig, 10 gig, whatever it is, at a very, very low cost, which makes it very attractive for customers to basically come in and hit our Azure Stack instead of going to public, because they can literally save a fortune when it comes to private circuits. And the other thing is, a lot of customers that I talk to say, why is Microsoft giving you private cloud? They have public cloud. They're competing with Amazon. They're competing with Google. Why do they want to put their expertise or their engineering into a private service provider and not the Microsoft data centers? So I say to them, the reason they're doing it, without a doubt, is to steal our customers. That's what they want. So basically, they want to get our customers onto our Azure cloud. Then they say, right, that's great, they're in Stack. What we'll do is we'll move them to public cloud and sort of buy ITPS, that's what you're done now. But I say, well, that ain't going to happen. We will provide a far superior service than what Microsoft can ever do, because we're going to provide a personal service. You know, we're going to provide, when people ring up, they're going to be speaking to the same people. We have quite a large help desk, but we have different teams who are aligned to different clients, different customers. You've obviously got GDPR coming in, which is a very important thing. People still want to know, where is their data kept? Who's got it? If I want it back, whose door do I go in and knock on to get it back? If it's in Microsoft's public cloud, everybody just thinks it's just too difficult. In a private cloud or a hybrid cloud, it's far more easy, it's far more personal. And I'll say that Microsoft won't be stealing our clients, we'll be stealing theirs. That's how we feel about it. Probably don't want to hear that, but that's what we think. And that's why we're doing it. So we bought a 12-node system, but we want 100 12-node systems. We want our data centers. We have a brand new state-of-the-art data center, our flagship, and it's half empty, and we want to fill it up with Azure Stack, without a doubt. And we feel that that's the future for ITPS. And as Phil said before, using proof of concepts, why not use ITPS as a proof of concept? If you want to contact me and use our systems, or partner with us for any hosting or any, we can do backward replication, we can partner together. That's what we want to do. So just on a footnote, I'd just like to say that the whole experience that we've had with Lenovo, with Microsoft, has been absolutely, fantastic. And we hope that it's going to continue. Like I said, there's an army of people turning up next week to get our systems live. And once that happens, we will be successful in it, I've no doubt. And obviously, I'm in trouble if we're not. So anyway, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, answer any questions? So if you have any questions, now's the time. Questions? We answered them all? Yes, go ahead, please.
But I wouldn't go above it. Think about what's going on for a second if you run a 4 times over commit. You are time slicing each physical core 4 times over. And there is an overhead on running that time. I'm kidding myself on the 4th session of the week. Sorry. There is a time slice overhead on the hypervisor. So you can, but your VM experience will probably be significantly degraded.
Yeah, okay, because in public Azure, there's no
Correct.
most of the virtual machines.
Correct.
For some customers, we do, because they have very light servers, they have very light applications. So for customer A, we don't do automate, and for other customers.
So here's the way you should really think about it. As Greg showed you, in Azure Stack, you are getting VMs that are amalgamous to Azure sizing, right? So the way I think about it is you should really be trying to offer an experience, broadly speaking, amalgamous to it. So yes, you can run the overcommit, but you might be getting into, if your application load is light enough, I understand you could do it, but remember you're really trying to run an amalgamous experience. This is not classic virtualization, which is why we had the pivot. This is Azure consistent on-prem appliance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense really, but it's important to know if there is a limitation because we have to make most money in that software.
Sure, there is no hard limit in Azure Stack that stops you.
On the CPU overcommit,
Correct.
there is a hard limit on the memory overcommit. Okay, you cannot memory overcommit. When you run out of memory, you'll go to deploy a VM, and if there's not enough, you can't deploy that VM. CPU, exactly. So, and again, these were guidelines. I mean, our vernacular, your mileage may vary. It comes off of car stickers, right? I'm going to get 87 miles to the gallon, you get 20. But just a rough sizing guideline so you can put that in context. Obviously, it does very much depend on the workload you're putting on it. I mean, if they're light CPU loads, then it's going to be different than if you're running an extremely CPU intensive. You might not at all.
But we monitor now all the CPU wait time.
Yep.
With SCOM, is it also a possibility with Azure Stack?
You can't monitor way. No, it's the simple answer. You can't, because you can't see it. No, you can't watch the wait time. Yeah, it's an appliance. You can watch utilization time, but you can't watch wait time. Yes, because I can see what you're doing, because you are trying to watch the quiet time to work out what your commit ratios can be. Yeah, good plan, but you can't do that. You have to look at the, correct, yes. You have to look at it from the top-down viewpoint, not a bottom-up viewpoint. That's this is what I have to stress. You have no access to Fabric at all. This is an appliance. And because there's no access to Fabric, you haven't got to deal with patching or hacking or security problems. And that's the big plus. Make sense? Cool.
Excellent. Other questions?
Go for it.
The hardware firmware levels are with Clarity.
Yes. So we monitor and we can apply them through xClarity.
It's not defined by Microsoft
No. In general, we dictate the firmware levels. When we come up with an update, we will provide that to Microsoft. They'll validate it. Once we're both happy that it's fully validated, then we'll release that. But we manage our hardware. We take care of those aspects of the system. Yes, but they will be as infrequent as we can make them. We all know the way firmware is typically when we do it because we have to, not because we want to. And with that in mind, we have to keep the entire system in sync. We have to test the entire thing as a whole. So we will do that, and for that reason, we'll try and minimize our updates. Okay? Other questions? Oh, please.
Sure, yes, okay, so the management plane of Azure Stack gives you complete resource utilization, a viewpoint, yes. You know, so you are aware of your current capacity utilization on either storage, network, compute. That's the way to think about it. But you're looking at it from an aggregated management experience, which looks identical to Azure's.
Repeat what they're saying.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, so you're quite right. Thanks, Greg. Yes, so the question is there trend analysis and is there forward-looking? There is a level of forward-looking, but as always with forward-looking, they are, no one can predict the future. That's the problem. You, as a stock trader says, past performance is no indication of future behavior. So that's the way to take that with a pinch of salt. Yes, that helped. But there is a full analytics dashboard available to you. That's really the thing to think about. Other questions?
And by the way, just to comment on that, I've also, one of the things that I like about this environment is that it's, extensible is the wrong word. There are services companies out there doing things. And so I've worked with companies then, I've talked to companies that have packages you can load on to provide some of this. The question will be, as Phil was talking about, if they don't have access to the core metrics to be able to build out something. But as far as other elements of this, there are companies out there on the floor that are doing things to enhance the experience and to enhance your reporting, assuming they have access to the core metrics. Other questions? All right. Well, on that note then, thank you very much for your time. We hope you have a great day here. Enjoy Universal Studios tonight. That should be a blast.